Well, I don't know how I missed this story, but a state judge in New Mexico has ruled for the first time that a politician, apparently a county commissioner from I think it's Otero County, is disqualified from holding office because he is a Confederate, or at least that's how I look at it. Officially, he was disqualified for quote unquote insurrectionary conduct. And so, therefore, under the 14th Amendment, which barred Confederate politicians from holding future office, this guy has now been essentially classified as a Confederate soldier or a Confederate leader, and so, therefore, he cannot hold any elected office, whether it be county, state, or federal, in the United States. Now, this is significant because nobody has been stupid enough to try to apply the 14th Amendment to anyone other than actual Confederate politicians, and even the Confederate politicians were granted amnesty by Congress. The vast majority of them, and I think by the end of the life, even if it was posthumously, I think they've all technically been given amnesty from that. So it's an amendment that, or it's an aspect of the 14th Amendment that just simply has never been enforced on anybody, even the people who it was written for. It was enforced for a time after the Civil War, and then after it was, understood that those men had been reintegrated, into the American society, they were given back their right to run for public office. And I assume, some of them did, some of them didn't. But no one has tried to apply that since then to future people, to people in the present day, because it was understood this has nothing to do with anything but the Civil War. Unless, I guess, Democrats think we're in a new Civil War, and it's just like the old Civil War, and so therefore old Civil War rules apply. And so now any Republican that you think is an insurrectionist, i.e. any Republican that isn't Bill Kristol or Jonah Goldberg, they can be disqualified from holding office. And so if you can do this to anybody, you can do it to the big man himself, the man with the orange face and the kind of yellowish hair, Donaldo Trumpo. Yes, they can finally get Trump if this decision is upheld. If this county commissioner continues to take this up and appeal this, do I think that this is going to hold forever? No. I think that what would eventually happen is that he would get to all the way up, to the New Mexico Supreme Court, and then he would have to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court would, of course, throw this out. But this guy's going to be tied up if he really wants to run for public office in the future. He's going to be tied up, and he's going to have, tons of legal fees, much more than whatever it costs him to campaign. And again, remember, this is a guy's a county commissioner, so he's apparently the founder of Cowboys for Trump. It doesn't sound like a very rich guy to me. Maybe he is. I don't know. I didn't look too deeply into him. I just know that he was present on January 6th, and that was the justification. That is his insurrectionary conduct, that he supported Trump and said that Trump won, which, in case the YouTube censors are listening, Trump most certainly did not win. Trump was a big loser. He is, in fact, the biggest loser. Now, with that out of the way, Trump himself, of course, in the eyes of the Dems, is the chief insurrectionist. This guy, whatever his name, Griffin, is a very low-level figure, somebody that nobody's ever heard of, and they were able to disqualify him. Well, if he's disqualifiable, then certainly Trump's conduct in orchestrating the insurrection and trying to overthrow the duly elected president, Joseph Robinette Biden, that is surely worthy of disqualification from holding future office. And likewise, I think eventually, even if they were able to disqualify him, Trump would continue to appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would certainly throw it out because this is a ridiculous interpretation. Trump was not the president of the Confederacy. He did not lead a war of independence against the central government in Washington back in the 1860s. So the 14th Amendment pretty clearly doesn't apply to him. But maybe they could, maybe just maybe, they could tie him up in court for long enough that they could stop the election from, really taking place in all its glory. They could raise doubts about Trump. They could potentially get him kicked off ballots in certain states. Let's say, I don't know, the state of Michigan, for example, a state that Trump won in 2016. And maybe if he runs in 2024, maybe he would need to win Michigan. It's possible. All these different states, Pennsylvania, that have, largely Democratic courts. Judges that have either been appointed by Democrats or judges that are elected Democrats. And even the ones that aren't elected Democrats may just be, your typical anti-Trump Republican lawyer, which I believe is like 90% of Republican lawyers. And so they could, knowing that the Supreme Court would throw out their decision, they could try and stall, and, what they could do is the lowest level court could disqualify Trump. Say, nope, you're an insurrectionist, you can't hold office in the United States, so you can't appear on the ballot in this state. Then the appeals judge could slow roll everything and refuse to issue any injunction against the prior decision, say, no, you're not going to be on the ballot, but we're going to go through the process, and this is going to take, maybe the trial's going to take like a year, and, in the meantime, the election will be held and Trump won't be on the ballot. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but this seems like a potential path to barring Trump from office, even if the federal Supreme Court itself, I think almost certainly would not do so. This is a way for the lower courts to really flex their muscle. First, deny him at the low level. Say, no, Trump, you can't hold office. You're an insurrectionist. Then, at the intermediate levels of the courts, the appeals courts or the state Supreme Courts, they could just slow roll everything until after the election. So then in states like Michigan or Pennsylvania or Nevada, Trump could be kept off the ballot. And just for good measure, all the blue states would do the same thing so that these states don't, stand out, because it would look weird if Trump's not on the ballot in Michigan, but he is in New York. So all the blue states would instantly kick Trump off the ballot. But the swing states would be, the ones that Trump has some chance of winning, that, in some cases Trump has to win, depending on, if he wins enough other states. He has to win at least some of these swing states. So if they're able to keep him off the ballot in enough states so that he cannot get to 240 electoral votes, think about it that way, they can deny Trump the presidency. Because that's all it would take. You don't need the federal Supreme Court if they're able to stall this. And if the lower courts want to slow walk this, specifically to keep Trump off the ballot so that the federal Supreme Court can't get to it, I don't think that the federal Supreme Court can intervene. I don't think that they can do that before, a case has reached them. It's just not how our court system works. And so after seeing, what was done in the Alex Jones trial, I would not put anything like this past them. I think that it seems like one of many things that they could potentially try if and when, because I think he almost certainly will, Trump runs. And if you look on Blue and on Twitter, accounts like, Midas Touch and Mueller, she wrote, this story from yesterday is blowing up. People really like this idea of just throwing Trump supporters and Trump himself, implicitly off the ballot. And you know what? In blue states, they could just do this to lower level people too. Throw out all sorts of people. Maybe they throw out, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Get her out of Congress. That's how they'll do it. They'll just deny her, say that she's an insurrectionist, and then, slow walk her. Now, eventually with these people, they will make it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will rule, no, you can actually run for public office. And in fact, somebody will want to get all the way up to the Supreme Court. Maybe this guy will do it. If there's somebody smart, they'll fund his legal efforts so that they can get up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can then set the precedent. No, you can't apply the 14th Amendment to present-day people, regardless of the circumstances. Even if you do want to call, all of your political opponents insurrectionists and say that they are, state enemies. Not even overtly revolutionary figures have been disqualified from running for office under the 14th Amendment, saying that, oh, they're insurrectionists. They didn't do that to Lyndon LaRouche or what was his name, the guy they threw in jail, that Woodrow Wilson jailed. Socialist Party USA. Gosh, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, you guys don't know the story I'm talking about. It was the socialist presidential candidate who was against the World War I, and so they threw him in prison. That guy didn't get disqualified, as an insurrectionist. I'm fairly certain. I think this is the only time they've ever applied it to anybody who wasn't literally a Confederate. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.